Hey, what's up, everyone? Dragging back again, here to tell you that you should be reading The Dolphins of Pern. So, The Dolphins of Pern is a 1994 science fiction novel written by the late Anne McCaffrey and is a part of the Dragon Riders of Pern novel series, in which, in the far flung future, colonists have come to this planet and to fight off an airborne menace that is basically vulnerable to water and fire. They genetically engineer a group of organisms living on the planet, which they've dubbed fire lizards, made them larger, more intelligent, more sentient, and giving them the ability for riders to kind of ride on them. Essentially, they look like dragons, and therefore they were dubbed dragons, hence the Dragon Riders of Pern. And initially, when the colonists came, they came with other life forms that they had created to be sentient, the dolphins. It was meant to kind of live and kind of cohabitually. But when they were forced to flee the southern continent and move north, they basically became disconnected with their seagoing brethren, as it were. And basically, over the time and centuries, they kind of lost contact, but the dolphins are still very much there and still very much sentient and still kind of have passed down this creed or kind of this calling, if you will, to if humans ever need them, they will come to their aid. That's why they help fishermen, people get lost at sea. They still kind of help them and aid them. And there's stories of the dolphins and how they've come to aid seagoing vessels and whatnot. And basically, this story is kind of humanity's reconnecting with the dolphins, kind of as they, at this point in their history, they've kind of begun to learn about their past, learn about their ancestors, learn about the original colonists to Pern, and learn about all the things that kind of came with it, including the dolphins themselves, and realizing the dolphins are not just creatures that live there or just animals that were brought with the original colonists, but rather a sentient race that was brought to Pern to kind of essentially uh, colonize the seas, if you will. And that's kind of what this story is about. It's about reconnecting essentially with old friends. And that's really, for me, the takeaway of this story. It is essentially reconnecting with people that you've just kind of lost contact with. And this can be applied to like the broader strokes like this story does. So like, cultures reconnecting with other cultures, finding their common history and kind of, meeting somewhere in the middle. Or it can be applied to something much more specific. It could be, family, friends, just relatives you haven't talked to or seen in a while for whatever reason, whether it be distance, just changing of the times, and you lose touch, you lose contact, and sometimes you basically forget that there are people who are very much like you, but at the same time different, kind of right under your nose, and there is kind of a whole wealth of understanding that can come from connecting with people that are kind of similar to you in a way, but also different, and kind of the fun that comes with meeting people like that, and making friendships that way, because we're so used to what we deem as normality. Like imagine you being able to speak to an animal or speak to someone from just a very different culture from your own. And while there's similarities there, you get kind of a breath of fresh air that comes with meeting someone from a different background, someone from a different cultural background, and you get to kind of perceive the world in a way that you have never done so before. So you take that which you are so familiar with and maybe even bored with, and by speaking with someone from a different background, you kind of now perceive something that you've always seen one way, but you do so now in a different way. And in doing so, it's like seeing this thing in a whole new light. It's like seeing the world in a whole new light because you're perceiving it in a different way now. And that suddenly everything is new again. Suddenly everything is exciting again. Suddenly you almost get to experience something for the first time all over again. And as someone who has traveled to other countries and experienced different cultures, you see something that is similar but different. And then suddenly something that for you would normally be mundane or just kind of boring and everyday now is exciting because you're experiencing it in a different way. You're experiencing it through different people. We had last time we went to Japan, we had some great conversations with some of the people over there, and we would have a nice little back and forth. They would ask us questions about things that are similar here in America, but obviously have a different kind of slant on it, being a different culture. and asking us what's it like over there, and us explaining to them how we do certain things over here versus how they do things there, and they were blown away by that. They were fascinated by that because it's something that's similar but different at the same time, and vice versa. We would ask them questions about how certain things are there in Japan versus the way we know them to be here in America, and with them explaining to us how the differences and how they perceive things and how they go about doing things and how they approach things differently was incredibly fascinating and interesting to us, because here are things and concepts and ideas that we're just so used to, that are just, again, it seems like the norm, the everyday, and because they go about it differently, suddenly we're looking at it in a completely different way, and it's like we're seeing it with fresh eyes for the first time. And it was really exciting. Just something as simple as they asked us. We talked, spent some time with some folks over there who work in the television industry, and they kind of asked us a little bit how the TV industry works here, and we were kind of just going over how it works here in the States, and they were fascinated by the differences, and vice versa. So something that we are just so used to here was incredibly interesting to them there, because it was different. It was a different take. So bringing it all back to a planet far, far away in the stars, it's coming in contact with a culture that has always been there, that has lived alongside them, but is different. They perceive the world from a different view, from a different perspective, and in doing so can offer insight that the land dwellers, if you will, don't necessarily have. And in doing so, you are broadening kind of their understanding of the planet of Pern. They're broadening their understanding of their actions, how it affects things, and vice versa. And the dolphins themselves are equally curious, because they are limited to where they can go. So they are curious about the land. They are curious about what is life is like beyond the sea. And in doing so, they basically form a kinship, and basically learn how they can aid one another, how they can bring news and word to one another, how they can basically help everyone live more comfortable, more kind of progressive, forward thinking lives in this world. Even though they inhabit very different corners of it, they all still share the same world. They're all still under the same sky. And ultimately, when this airborne menace threat falls from the sky, the dolphins have an advantage being living in the ocean, and that threat is killed by water, but can bring aid to those fleeing the land, can help ships along the way, can help ships and fishermen create better navigational routes across the seas. They can basically contribute that which they initially were supposed to, and have always wanted to, because they have not forgotten the mission. They have not forgotten their calling and what their duty was on Pern, which was they're doing their part to help. It is humanity that kind of forgot and lost touch with that. So they have been there waiting patiently for humanity to essentially remember. And now that humanity is coming around, they are delighted to be able to assist, to help, and for them to reconnect with old friends, with that is a part of their legacy that they had lost and they long to regain. So it's a really nice story about kind of reconnecting with old friends, so to speak, and what you can gain from that, or just reconnecting with cultures that exist, that are out there, but you've never reached out. You've never yourself kind of strayed from your comfort zone, that which is familiar to you. It's very easy, if you've grown up in one place and you lived in one place for most of your life, if not all your life, to just get comfortable and stay there and think to yourself, why do I need to go across an ocean to another country and meet people who are different than me? Why do I have to go to another land and try different foods and go to a place where people speak a different language than me? Why do I need to do that? And the answer is because you'll be a much more richer individual for it. It's an experience that will only better you, even if you don't have an innate curiosity for this sort of thing. Doing this will only make you a better person. There is no drawback to this, and the more places you go to, the more people and cultures and customs you experience, the more of a in-depth individual you yourself will be. You will only be kind of deepening, the nature of who you are as a person. So you literally have nothing to lose and everything to gain. And that's what this story shows, is what both sides have to gain by reconnecting with one another. And it's a really cool story. And I like how it's between two species, essentially. And yet humanity has formed this bond with the dragons. So again, a race that is very much alien to them, and the dolphins come from Earth. So already there is an existing kinship. The dolphins and the humans were both once upon a time aliens to this world. They came across the stars as travelers. So they have a bond, they have a kinship, they have a history together. And once you reconnect, all that shared history, comes back up, and you realize that, man, we were leaving less alone in this world than we thought. We've had more friends here all along than we've allowed ourselves to believe, which is also the important of history and knowing where you come from, and studying the past. Because while people say don't forget the past or you're doomed to repeat it, at the same time, don't forget the past too, because you might be missing out on something really great if you remain ignorant to it. But anyway, so the Dragon Riders of Pern. Have you read it? If so, what did you think? How does it stack up for you in terms of the whole Dragon Riders of Pern series? The Dolphins of Pern, I meant to say. How does Dolphins of Pern stack up within the Dragon Riders of Pern series? I always get those kind of tongue-tying confused. Do you feel it was a kind of a nice change? Because it is, to me, one of the standout stories because of the nature of it and what it's dealing with. And again, I always like these books because I think they're very thoughtful and do a good job on kind of putting forth a bit of commentary on kind of who we are. That's what great storytelling does, especially science fiction and fantasy, when you can use the more fantastical aesthetics to kind of tell a very kind of grounded story, which is a more fantastical look to it. If you have not read the Dragon Riders of Pern, or the Dolphins of Pern, which is a Dragon Riders of Pern story, as always, I will leave links in the description section below where you can pick it up, give it a read, give me some of your thoughts. If you have not read any of the other books prior to it, or even after, I don't think you'll be very lost in this one. This is one of those stories I feel it's kind of a very, not a one and done, but it focuses on a very specific aspect of this culture, of this world, that I think you won't feel lost in terms of the grander scheme of what's going on by just reading this one. So for that reason alone, this isn't a bad one to start with. So come back, give it a read, come back, give me some of your thoughts. Let me know what you think, and if you really enjoyed it, by all means, there are plenty of Dragon Riders of Pern books for you to dive into. So if you like this one, have a blast with it. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace!